So what if I'm the only one that doesn't get an invitation? It's nothing to cry about. After all, I'm not a child. I'm a man. But why does it always have to be me?
From a boat named as revenge against the FCC to a pilot filmed during JFK's assassination, Gilligan's Island harbored secrets stranger than any coconut radio. Behind those tropical paradise smiles lurked cast feuds, dangerous stunts with real lions, and a hitchhiking journey involving horses and Vegas flights, all to land a single role. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about Gilligan's Island. Fact 1. The SS Minnow was named to insult the FCC chairman.
Mate was a mighty sailing man, the skipper brave and sure. 5 passengers set sail that day for a 3-hour tour.
The name of Gilligan's doomed boat wasn't chosen at random, and it definitely wasn't just named after a tiny fish. Creator Sherwood Schwartz actually named the SS Minnow as a deliberate jab at Newton Minnow, the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, making it one of television's most cleverly disguised insults. The story begins on May 9, 1961, when Newton Minnow delivered a now-famous speech at the National Association of Broadcasters Convention in Washington, D.C. During that speech, Minnow harshly criticized the television industry, calling it a vast wasteland and scolding networks for not taking responsibility for the quality of their programming. He specifically targeted formula comedies, which happened to be exactly the kind of show Schwartz was known for creating. Schwartz took serious offense to Minnow's criticism and blamed him for what came next. According to the creator, Minnow's speech gave networks dictatorial power over television production that they had never possessed before. Schwartz later explained that the 3 major networks began using this power to control everything, comparing it to giving a policeman a gun. When Schwartz started working on Gilligan's Island in 1963, he experienced this network control firsthand when CBS made changes to his pilot without his permission, which made him furious. As revenge for what he saw as Minnow ruining television, Schwartz named the shipwrecked vessel after the FCC chairman. He cleverly added an extra N to spell it Minnow, like the fish, which gave him plausible deniability if anyone questioned the name. One crew member later remarked that no one could say Gilligan's Island was without hidden meaning, calling the boat naming a dubious honor for the man Schwartz insisted had destroyed the industry. Interestingly enough, Newton Minnow himself found the whole thing funny and took the insult with good humor. Fact 2. The final day of pilot filming was JFK's assassination.
Apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
The filming of Gilligan's Island's pilot episode, titled Marooned, became forever linked to one of America's darkest moments in history. The final day of shooting was scheduled for Friday, November 22, 1963, which turned out to be the day President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. The cast and crew were working at a naval base in Honolulu, Hawaii, when they learned the devastating news late that morning, Hawaii time. Between filming scenes, everyone crowded around a radio, together listening to the news bulletins as the tragedy unfolded thousands of miles away on the mainland. The assassination had immediate consequences for the production schedule. The government shut down the naval base for 2 days following the president's death, which prevented the television crew from finishing their work as planned. Instead of wrapping up on November 22nd as scheduled, filming had to be pushed back until almost December, creating delays that no one had anticipated. The impact of that terrible day didn't disappear when production resumed, and a permanent reminder of the tragedy made it into the show itself. If you watch the opening credits from the first season carefully, you can actually see an American flag flying at half-mast in the background as the Minnow leaves the harbor and heads out to sea. That flag was lowered in honor of the fallen president, and it became an unintentional but poignant piece of the show's opening sequence. The flag remained visible in those opening credits throughout the entire first season, serving as a somber historical marker embedded in what would become one of television's most lighthearted and beloved comedies. It's a strange contrast that connects this silly sitcom about shipwrecked castaways to one of the most significant moments in American history. Fact 3. Jerry Van Dyke called it the worst thing I'd ever read.
Bob Denver wasn't even my first choice. Jerry Van Dyke was my first choice. In fact,
before Bob Denver became the lovable, bumbling first mate we all know, the role of Gilligan was actually offered to someone else first. Jerry Van Dyke, the younger brother of famous actor Dick Van Dyke, was creator Sherwood Schwartz's original choice to play the title character. But Van Dyke had zero interest in the project. When he read the script for Gilligan's Island in 1964, he absolutely hated it and didn't hold back his opinion. Van Dyke called it the worst thing I'd ever read and turned down the role without hesitation, believing the show was far too silly to ever become successful. He also didn't like the idea of being part of an ensemble cast and thought the whole concept was inane and beneath him. Instead of taking the Gilligan role, Van Dyke chose to star in a sitcom called My Mother the Car, which premiered the following year in 1965. The premise of that show was exactly as bizarre as it sounds, featuring a man whose deceased mother's soul somehow gets reincarnated into a 1928 Porter automobile, and she gives him advice from beyond the grave through the car radio. While Van Dyke believed he had made the smart choice by picking what he thought was a better script, history proved him spectacularly wrong. My Mother the Car became a massive failure and was canceled after just one season, and it has since been frequently cited as one of the worst television shows ever made. Meanwhile, Gilligan's Island went on to run for 98 episodes over 3 seasons and became a beloved cultural phenomenon that's still watched in syndication today. Years later, Van Dyke admitted he regretted his decision not to take either Gilligan's Island or another offer to replace Don Knotts on The Andy Griffith Show, both of which would have been far better career moves. Fact 4. The skipper hitchhiked 120 miles on horseback to audition.
Are you sure positively you're stuck?
I'm sure positively I'm stuck.
Are you definitely positively sure you're stuck?
I'm definitely positively sure I'm stuck.
Alan Hale Jr. went to absolutely extraordinary lengths to audition for the role of the skipper, embarking on a journey that sounds like something straight out of an adventure movie. In 1964, Hale was filming a Western called Bullet for a Bad Man with Audie Murphy in St. George, Utah, when he received a phone call from CBS about auditioning for Gilligan's Island. The problem was that he was stuck on location in Zion National Park with no easy way to get to Los Angeles, and the low-budget film production couldn't provide him with transportation. There were no planes flying out of St. George, no rental cars available, and the director wouldn't let him leave the set. Determined not to miss this opportunity, Hale decided to take matters into his own hands in the most dramatic way possible. He and fellow actor Skip Homeyer had ridden horses to get to the filming location in the gorge. So Hale secretly mounted his horse and rode out of Zion National Park until he reached the highway. Once there, he stuck out his thumb and hitchhiked approximately 120 miles to Las Vegas, Nevada, where he was finally able to catch a flight to Los Angeles for his audition. The gamble paid off spectacularly because when Hale arrived at CBS, creator Sherwood Schwartz took one look at him and essentially offered him the role on the spot, telling him, "If you'd like to be the skipper, you are." But the adventure wasn't over yet, because Hale then had to hitchhike all the way back to where Homeyer was waiting with his horse in Utah, so he could return to the film set. This wild journey involving horses, hitchhiking, and cross-country flights helped Hale beat out some tough competition, including future All in the Family star Carol O'Connor, who had also auditioned for the skipper role. Fact 5. Bob Denver was locked in a hut with a real lion.
Professor, what's a fearless Leo?
Well, that's the zoological classification for lion.
Oh, there must have been a lion in this crate.
Gilligan's Island may have been a light-hearted comedy, but the dangers on set were sometimes very real, especially during one particularly nerve-wracking scene involving Bob Denver and a live lion. The show featured a storyline where Gilligan gets trapped in a hut with a lion, which sounds like typical sitcom silliness until you realize they used an actual living, breathing lion for the scene. According to fellow cast member Dawn Wells, who played Mary Ann, even the professional animal trainer seemed to be having trouble controlling the big cat during filming, which should have been a major warning sign that things might go wrong. The situation became genuinely frightening when it came time to film the moment where Gilligan first notices the lion in the hut with him. Instead of calmly sitting there as presumably trained to do, the lion suddenly decided to leap directly at Bob Denver, turning what was supposed to be a controlled comedy scene into a legitimately dangerous moment. Denver found himself facing down a lunging lion with nowhere to go, trapped in an enclosed space with an unpredictable wild animal. The incident was terrifying enough that it stuck in the memories of everyone who witnessed it, with cast members talking about it years later as one of the show's most harrowing behind-the-scenes moments. What makes this story even more remarkable is that despite the obvious danger and the fact that things clearly didn't go according to plan, the footage actually made it into the final episode. Viewers watching at home had no idea they were witnessing a real moment of panic and danger, assuming it was all just clever acting and special effects. The whole experience served as a stark reminder that even on a show as silly and fun as Gilligan's Island, working with live animals could put actors in genuinely risky situations that went far beyond normal television production hazards. Fact 6. The lagoon was only 4 feet deep.
Skipper, I got a bite. Must be a real big one, Skipper.
So do I. Mine must weigh 50 pounds. Watch it, little buddy. You're fouling my line.
The iconic lagoon that appeared in countless episodes of Gilligan's Island looked like a vast, deep body of tropical water on television, but the reality behind the scenes was far less impressive. The lagoon was actually built on the CBS Radford Studios lot in Studio City, Los Angeles, and it was nothing more than a shallow outdoor pool that measured only about 4 feet deep at its deepest point. This means that any time you saw the castaways swimming, diving, or paddling around in what appeared to be a substantial lagoon, they were actually splashing around in water that barely came up to their chests. The illusion was created through careful camera angles and clever production techniques that made this modest pool look like a genuine tropical paradise setting. The shallow depth presented some practical challenges for the production crew, particularly when it came to keeping the water clean and presentable for filming. According to those involved with the show, they couldn't add chlorine to the lagoon because it would have looked unnatural on camera, which meant the water would sometimes get kind of dirty and unpleasant between cleanings. The location also came with another issue because the lagoon backed right up to the 101 freeway, so the crew had to be extremely careful during filming to avoid picking up the sounds of traffic noise, which would have completely ruined the illusion of being on a remote desert island. Perhaps the most amusing detail about the famous lagoon is what happened to it when the show wasn't in production. During Gilligan's Island's off-season breaks, the lagoon was completely drained of water and transformed into a parking lot for studio vehicles and equipment. The lagoon remained standing long after the show ended and became the last surviving physical element of the original Gilligan's Island set before it was finally demolished in 1997 as part of a studio expansion project. Fact 7. Dawn Wells was the only cast member paid residuals.
Oh, let me go.
As long as the law, I'm going to tell you.
Let her go.
I wouldn't do that, will you, Mary Ann?
Oh, and what are you going to do about it? Let me out of here.
While Gilligan's Island went on to become one of the most successful shows in television syndication history, running continuously for decades after its original 3-season run, only one cast member actually continued to profit from that success. Dawn Wells, who played the sweet farm girl Mary Ann Summers, was the sole actor who managed to secure a contract that paid her residuals for the show's seemingly endless reruns. The reason she was able to accomplish this came down to smart negotiating by her former husband, Larry Rosen, who also happened to be her agent at the time the contracts were being drawn up. Most of the other actors on Gilligan's Island had signed standard contracts that only guaranteed them payment for the first 5 times their episodes were rerun, which was typical for television shows in the 1960s when nobody really anticipated how valuable syndication would eventually become. The producers and networks had no idea that Gilligan's Island would still be playing on television screens around the world decades later, so they didn't think twice about agreeing to Wells' slightly different contract terms. Rosen pushed for a deal that would give Wells ongoing rerun payments that extended well into the 21st century. And the producers agreed because they simply couldn't foresee the show's long-term syndication success. This contractual difference meant that while Wells continued to receive checks from Gilligan's Island reruns for years and years, her fellow cast members stopped earning money from the show after those initial 5 reruns. The disparity became a sore point for some of the other actors, particularly when they saw how massively profitable the show became in syndication. Wells herself acknowledged that she made only $700 per week during the original production, but thanks to that smart contract negotiation, she remained the only cast member still collecting payments from a show that made its creator Sherwood Schwartz an estimated $90 million. Fact 8. Tina Louise sat alone. Between scenes.
I surrender to our passions, my love.
Hi, Skipper.
Willingly.
There's a runway, so I thought I'd come over
Gladly.
and see if you needed anything at all. So
I want to go where you go.
right now?
The cast of Gilligan's Island may have looked like one big happy family on screen, but behind the scenes, there was a noticeable divide that centered around Tina Louise, who played the glamorous movie star Ginger Grant. A revealing TV Guide article from January 1965 exposed the uncomfortable dynamics on set, describing how the other 6 principal cast members would chat and tell jokes together between takes while Louise sat off by herself, completely separate from the group. The isolation appeared to be mutual, with Louise keeping her distance from her co-stars and them essentially ignoring her in return. The tension was particularly pronounced between Louise and Bob Denver, who played the title character Gilligan. The article noted that Denver would not explain why he and Louise didn't get along, and none of the other castaways would discuss it either, choosing instead to simply avoid any interaction with her when cameras weren't rolling. The situation became so strained that when Denver was asked to pose for promotional pictures with Louise, he adamantly refused, making it clear that whatever issues existed between them went beyond simple personality differences. The reasons for the discord seemed to stem from Louise's expectations about the show, as she had apparently believed she would be the star rather than just one member of an ensemble cast, which created resentment and disappointment that affected her relationships with everyone involved. This behind-the-scenes conflict followed Louise for the rest of her career with the show. She refused to participate in any of the Gilligan's Island reunion movies or specials that came later, declining to reprise her role as Ginger, even when all the other surviving cast members agreed to return. In later years, Louise softened her stance somewhat and expressed fondness for the character, though the fractured relationships from those early days on set never fully healed. Fact 9. The Professor and Mary Ann were and the rest.
Who am I?
The Professor.
She's fine.
Who are they?
Gilligan and Skipper.
She's okay.
And of course you know who you are.
I'm Ginger.
She's sick.
2 of Gilligan's Island's most beloved characters were treated as afterthoughts in the show's opening credits for an entire season, relegated to a dismissive phrase that became infamous among fans. Russell Johnson, who played the Professor, and Dawn Wells, who played Mary Ann, were not mentioned by name in the first season's theme song at all. Instead, after listing Gilligan, the skipper, the millionaire and his wife, and the movie star Ginger, The lyrics simply concluded with the vague phrase, "and the rest," lumping these two important characters together as if they were barely worth mentioning. The situation arose from contractual issues and timing problems that made it difficult to properly credit Johnson and Wells from the start. According to Wells herself, both actors joined the cast after the pilot had already been filmed and aired, and because of pre-existing contractual agreements with other actors, it became complicated to renegotiate the opening credits to include them properly. This meant that despite being central characters who appeared in every episode and were crucial to many storylines, the Professor and Mary Ann were essentially treated as extras in the show's most memorable element, its catchy theme song. The injustice of this arrangement didn't sit well with everyone involved, particularly Bob Denver, who played the title character. Denver recognized that it made no sense to have 7 castaways stranded on the island, but only acknowledge 5 of them by name in the credits. He actively fought on behalf of his fellow cast members, insisting to the producers that Johnson and Wells deserved to be properly recognized. Thanks to Denver's advocacy, the theme song was completely re-recorded for Season 2 with new lyrics that specifically named the Professor and Mary Ann, finally giving them the credit they had earned. The change was a small but meaningful correction that fans appreciated and that remains in the version most people remember today. Fact 10. A CBS executive wanted Gilligan to have a pet dinosaur.
Gilligan, you can't fly. It's impossible.
I can't?
No!
Gilligan's Island could have taken an even stranger turn than anyone imagined if one CBS executive had gotten his way during the show's development. Hunt Stromberg Jr., a network executive at the time, came up with what he apparently thought was a brilliant idea to add an animated dinosaur to the show as Gilligan's personal pet. This wasn't just a passing suggestion or a joke tossed out in a brainstorming session. Stromberg was completely serious about the proposal and genuinely believed it would enhance the series. Creator Sherwood Schwartz later recalled the bizarre pitch in his book, Inside Gilligan's Island, describing how Stromberg enthusiastically presented his vision to the other executives and producers. According to Schwartz, Stromberg exclaimed, "Just picture it, Gilligan and his pet dinosaur," with genuine excitement, apparently convinced that adding a prehistoric creature to a show about shipwrecked castaways was exactly what the series needed. The concept would have meant mixing live-action footage with animated sequences, similar to what some other shows were experimenting with during that era of television, creating a weird hybrid that would have completely changed the tone and style of Gilligan's Island. Fortunately for the show's legacy and sanity, the other executives in the room quickly recognized how ridiculous the dinosaur idea was and shut it down before it could go any further. The proposal was rejected, and Gilligan's Island remained grounded in its own particular brand of sitcom reality without venturing into the surreal territory of prehistoric pets. It's fascinating to think about how different the show might have been if Stromberg's vision had been approved. Though it's probably safe to say that Gilligan's Island became the beloved classic. It is precisely because it didn't feature an animated dinosaur wandering around the tropical island alongside the castaways. Fact 11. Natalie Schaefer lied about her age by nearly 10 years.
Lovey, if anything happens, I want to thank you for 15 of the happiest years a man ever had.
Thurston, we've been married 20.
I know, but the last 5 years have been a little shaky.
Natalie Schaefer, who played the wealthy and refined Mrs. Lovey Howell on Gilligan's Island, built her casting on a foundation of deception that she maintained for most of her life. When auditioning for the role, Schaefer deliberately lied about her age, claiming to be nearly 10 years younger than she actually was in order to secure the part. This wasn't just a small fib or a minor adjustment of a year or two. It was a substantial falsification that required careful management to maintain over the years. What makes this deception even more remarkable is how far Schaefer was willing to go to protect her secret and keep up the illusion of being younger than her true age. She didn't just lie about the number itself. she went to great lengths to hide other aspects of her personal life that might have revealed the truth. Schaefer even concealed the fact that she was engaged and later married, apparently believing that her relationship status might somehow expose her real age or contradict the younger persona she had created for herself in Hollywood. The commitment to this lie extended well beyond her time on Gilligan's Island, as Schaefer kept up the deception throughout most of her life and career. She understood that in Hollywood, particularly for women, age could be a significant barrier to getting roles, and she was determined not to let the truth stand in the way of her opportunities. Interestingly, Schaefer had initially agreed to film the Gilligan's Island pilot primarily because it meant a free trip to Hawaii, assuming the show would never actually get picked up by the network. When the series became a hit and ran for 3 seasons, she found herself locked into maintaining her age lie for much longer than she had ever anticipated, creating a web of deception that became a permanent part of her public identity. Fact 12. The show was canceled to save the boss's wife's favorite show.
On the basis of circumstantial evidence, I'm afraid you're a prevaricator.
Well, that's better than calling me a liar.
And that's what prevaricator means.
Gilligan's Island met its end not because of poor ratings or creative exhaustion, but because of something far more personal and unexpected involving the network president's wife. The show was still performing well in the ratings when it was abruptly canceled after its 3rd season in 1967, leaving the cast and crew shocked since everyone had fully expected to return for a 4th season. The real reason behind the cancellation had nothing to do with the show's performance and everything to do with internal network politics and one very influential woman's television preferences. CBS President William S. Paley's wife was a devoted fan of the long-running Western series Gunsmoke, which was facing potential cancellation at the time due to its own ratings challenges. Paley wanted to save Gunsmoke from getting axed, largely because his wife loved the show so much, but the solution required moving it into a different time slot where it might perform better. The problem was that CBS's schedule was already packed, and there simply wasn't room to accommodate Gunsmoke's move without sacrificing something else. That something else turned out to be Gilligan's Island, which was given the axe at the last minute to free up the time slot that Gunsmoke needed. Another show called Hey Landlord was also canceled for the same reason, both falling victim to Paley's determination to keep his wife's favorite Western on the air. The final episode of Gilligan's Island aired on April 17, 1967, ending just like every other episode with the castaways still stranded on the island. Nobody on the production knew it would be the series finale because they were all preparing for Season 4, making the cancellation particularly jarring and leaving storylines forever unresolved until the reunion movies came along more than a decade later. Fact 13. A bamboo rescue plane nearly disrupted real air traffic.
The skipper wanted me to be skipper if anything happened to the skipper. And I'm gonna be skipper because that's the way the skipper wanted it. Any questions?
The 1979 TV movie, The Castaways on Gilligan's Island, featured a rescue plane that caused real-world confusion and nearly triggered an actual emergency response from authorities. The movie's plot involved the castaways discovering an old World War II airplane hangar on the island and the professor building a working plane out of spare parts, which they covered in bamboo to make it look appropriately island-made. Instead of using special effects or models, the producers decided to build an actual flight-worthy aircraft and cover it with bamboo props, then fly it over the Pacific Ocean just off the coast of Los Angeles for the filming. This decision to use a real plane created several unexpected problems that nobody had fully anticipated. According to Alan Hale Jr., who played the skipper, air traffic controllers spotted this strange bamboo-covered aircraft flying over the ocean and became understandably concerned, nearly disrupting regular air traffic because they had no idea what this bizarre craft was or where it came from. The situation became even more complicated when the script called for the castaways to jettison luggage from the plane during their flight. which meant the production crew had to throw actual suitcases and bags out of the aircraft and into the Pacific Ocean below. This created a serious secondary concern because floating luggage in the ocean could easily be mistaken for debris from an actual boat sinking or plane crash, which would have prompted the Coast Guard to launch a real rescue operation. To prevent this disaster, the production team had to clearly mark all the prop luggage so that if the Coast Guard found the floating suitcases, they would immediately recognize them as movie props rather than evidence of a genuine maritime emergency. Hale himself had served in the Coast Guard before his acting career, so he understood exactly what kind of response the floating debris might trigger if it wasn't properly identified. Fact 14. 8 people appear on the boat in some opening credits.
I'm not gonna dress up like a girl, and you can't make me. You can't make me. You can't make me.
The theme song of Gilligan's Island famously tells us that 5 passengers set sail that day, along with Gilligan and the skipper, making 7 castaways total who ended up stranded on the island. However, eagle-eyed fans who pay close attention to the opening credits of Season 2 have noticed something strange that doesn't quite add up with the math. During certain wide shots of the SS Minnow heading out to sea, there appears to be an 8th person visible on the boat, creating a mystery that puzzled viewers for years about who this extra castaway might have been. The explanation behind this continuity error is actually quite practical and has nothing to do with a secret 8th character or a planned storyline that got cut. The mysterious additional person spotted in those distant boat shots was simply a stand-in who was used to fill out the scene during filming. When the production crew needed to capture wide-angle shots of the Minnow from far away, they didn't always have all 7 main actors available or positioned on the actual boat, so they used substitute performers to create the illusion of a full vessel heading out on its ill-fated 3-hour tour. This use of stand-ins was a common filmmaking technique that saved time and money, allowing the crew to shoot necessary establishing shots without requiring the entire main cast to be present for scenes where their faces wouldn't be clearly visible anyway. The problem was that someone apparently lost count or positioned too many stand-ins on the boat for those particular shots, resulting in an extra body that sharp-eyed fans would eventually notice decades later. The blooper has become one of the most well-known continuity mistakes in the show's history, a small production detail that slipped through and created an enduring bit of Gilligan's Island trivia. Fact 15. The Castaways Film 1 at Cannes by accident.
Skipper, did I do that?
No, Gilligan, I just felt like wearing the door tonight.
One of the most hilariously ironic episodes of Gilligan's Island involved the castaways attempting to make a rescue film that would help them get off the island, only to have it turn into a complete disaster that somehow became an unexpected success. The episode, titled Castaways Pictures Presents, featured the group discovering old silent movie equipment that had washed up on shore from a sunken yacht that once belonged to a silent film actress and her husband from a production company called South Sea Films. The professor came up with the idea to use this equipment to create a film documenting their shipwreck and showing their location, which they could then send on a raft to the mainland to alert rescuers. The filming process quickly descended into chaos as Mr. Howell took over as director, and everyone tried to get their own message into the movie. When it came time to show the island's location on a map, all the castaways except Gilligan jumped into the frame to point out different landmarks, with Mr. Howell trying to show Fort Knox, Ginger indicating Hollywood, Mary Ann pointing to Washington, D.C., and the professor attempting to demonstrate ocean currents, while Mrs. Howell just showed off her wardrobe to the camera. The final product turned out to be a hodgepodge mess of poorly edited scenes that were printed upside down, sped up, slowed down, overlapping each other, and even overexposed when Gilligan accidentally opened the darkroom door at the wrong time. Despite the obviously terrible quality of their rescue film, the castaways were shocked when they heard a radio report days later announcing that a mysterious film submitted anonymously had won first prize at the prestigious Cannes Film Festival. Their complete failure at making a coherent rescue message had somehow been interpreted as brilliant avant-garde cinema by the festival judges, turning their desperate attempt at salvation into accidental artistic triumph.